is utterly irresponsible.
Good speech. Good speech. Well done.
The Honourable Ron Mark.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Well, my crikey, isn't it interesting to hear these members of Parliament coming back to the House and making their first speeches? Well, how would I describe that speech? Cry me a river is how I would describe that speech. Cry me a river. The first speech opens up with how great I am, I've done this, done that, done everything, all about himself, how wonderful, and then it moves on into that zone of grief, you know. Unfair, not fair, we got more than you, it's not fair. Well, actually, I've got a message from Mr McIndoe as he makes his way. All right? Be good in government. Be good in government. Be competent. Don't be the disaster that, unfortunately, we are now finding that last government to be. And what am I speaking of? I'm speaking of the revelations that hit me, the grenade that landed on my desk when I became the Minister of Defence. 148... Well, that member can't talk. He hasn't got any medals, has he? So let's talk about 148 million medals. 148 million of them, a blowout on a project that national government had responsibility. Well, actually, this is how jolly lazy they were. They didn't even start this project. It was a Labor New Zealand first government that signed off on the business case for this project. What for? To upgrade one of our 3 top-tier assets in defence, our strategic assets, Special Forces, P3 Orions, Anzac frigates. These frigates, and those members gone silent now because they know, had fallen behind. The systems on board were outdated. We knew that in 2008. 2008. So we signed off. And then this government takes the helm. Well, or not, it would appear. And then it has the responsibility and the privilege of seeing our men and women in the Navy equipped with the finest equipment necessary, A, to protect themselves, B, to protect other people, and C, to be able to operate in a high-tech environment where the risks these days are massive. But where are we 9 long years later? Well, the vessels still haven't been upgraded, but worse, the project that would have seen that process start was stalled. Why? This government knew back in 2015, 2016, and a few months prior to the election that they had a problem. What was the problem? Well, actually, the same problem that's plagued Defence and MOD for years, and which unfortunately I've been banging on about for 16-odd years in Parliament: poor project management. But who was the government that took over and was going to fix all that? National. What did they do? Nothing. 2014, they finally started to accept recommendations that had been in reports time and time again saying that MOD's understaffed, under-resourced, doesn't have the capacity to manage these multi-billion-dollar projects. But no, they sat there and did nothing. Mr Brownlee wants to stand up in the House today in question time or yell across the House and justify as an action. Says, oh, we rolled over too soon, we could have delayed, we could have held out longer. What? Mr Brownlee bought all of the systems that are sitting on shelves in warehouses right now with the warranty clock ticking down to zero. Is he seriously suggesting? Oh, that's a mark. This is becoming the hallmark of this John Cleese government, isn't it, really? Just total incompetence and buffoonery. So what? Is he suggesting that we go into another tender process, another due diligence process, take as long as they did, another 9 years, while all of these systems sit on the shelf, the warranties expire, and they become outdated again? Well, that sounds just like the National Party. You know, it's one thing to come into government with hope and desire to serve the New Zealand public and the citizens of this country as best as you can in the area of defence and foreign policy. But by crikey, Mr Speaker, I've got to say, it doesn't help us when all we are finding all over the place is fiscal holes and promises made without money budgeted and decisions that haven't been made, and the consequences of that is now that we are behind. So what? Do we sail these frigates into these areas where they are of questionable value, where there are questionable risks? Well, that's clearly a decision that the national government of the past decided to go with. And if I was sitting in those benches, I'd feel ashamed. I'd feel ashamed of their inaction, ashamed that they didn't take the advice in front of them, and a shame that they didn't do what we have just done, signed off, allocated the money, signed the contract and got the project underway.
Mr Speaker.
Denise Lee.
I'm still a new MP, but from watching the last